the July 9th, 2024 City Council Work Session meeting. Our meetings are public and you are welcome to join us in person or by watching from the Council's agenda page, Zoom, Facebook, YouTube, or SLC TV. We hope you'll continue to join us in whichever manner you feel most comfortable. This is a work session meeting during which there is no public comment. Please join us tonight during our 7 p.m. formal meeting to share your comments. We, of course, welcome your feedback anytime by mail to P.O. Box 145-476, Salt Lake City, Utah, 84114, 5476, by email at council.comments@slcgov.com, or via our 24-hour phone comment line 801-535-7654. Comments we receive on agenda topics are shared with council members and posted to our website, slccouncil.com. We'll now begin our work session. The first agenda item is informational updates from the administration. I have here that we're supposed to be hearing from Weston Clark and Andrew Johnston. I don't seem to have either of them in the room. Never mind. It's like his spidey sense was tingling and Weston Clark is here to save the day. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. I'll be very quick today. Only a couple of updates. You can advance to the next slide. And Andrew, I don't know if you said Andrew won't be here today. He doesn't have any updates. This is our regular reminder to go to our feedback page for any open engagements in the city. We try to collect in one spot for easy access. Next page. As many of you already know, the city's $200,000 e-bike rebate pilot launched today, and applications are open until July 16th. 5 local bike shops are participating, and there are 2 bike options, the city commuter or the cargo utility bike, and there are 3 voucher types, low income, moderate income, and a standard voucher. The Sustainability Department plans to get back to those applicants by July 31st, and the participants have until the end of September to purchase their e-bikes. Bike Utah is also participating in offering some bike safety and etiquette classes throughout the fall. The department's going to collect some data and report back to the City Council when the pilot has concluded. For more information, go to slcgreen.com/ebike. In 2025, 100 South, very close to the University of Utah campus, between University Street and North Campus Drive, will be reconstructed to rehabilitate aging pavement and protect the roadway for future use. This stretch of roadway is identified in the Salt Lake City Pedestrian and Bicycle Master Plan. So the project team will be evaluating ways to improve this stretch for pedestrian and bikes as part of the design process. The city team is working closely with the University of Utah to help contact and hear from the most impacted immediate stakeholders, such as the university, the medical hospital facilities, and the Jewish Community Center. This week, a website will be launched for residents to go see what the scope of the project is going to be and to sign up for any updates ongoing. Next slide. These are actually the same that we presented last week. The next community office hour for the mayor's office team will be on the 15th at Avenues on 4th Gift Shop from 5:30 to 7 p.m. And then, of course, a bunch more in August in a lot of community events that we will be tabling at. And then our last slide is the events slide, which is where we bring some of the events funded by the ACE Fund, city-sponsored events, and publicly permitted events of interest. Of course, it's not all-inclusive, and there could be some errors, so make sure you Google it and contact the host before you show up. But we're heading into the 24th with the Pioneer Day Drone Show, as well as the Utah Native American Chamber of Commerce's United Communities Powwow on the 24th. And then, of course, you should all be aware of the 3 a.m. celebration here at Washington Square to welcome the Olympic announcement. So the summer of fun continues. That's all I've got for you.
Thank you so much, Weston Council. Any questions, comments, concerns?
No, just remember, if you're interested in an e-bike, the program starts today, so you can apply online.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So good to see you. All right, with that, we'll move on to item number 2, an ordinance for form-based zone corrections text amendment. Brian Fulmer, Council Policy Analyst, and Noah Elmore, Associate Planner, are joining us at the table. Gentlemen, the time is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a proposal from the administration to correct sections of city code related to form-based districts. Planning staff identified some incorrect, inconsistent, or incompatible language, and the proposal makes corrections. I'll turn it over to Noah.
So as Brian mentioned, this is an ordinance to revise some language in the form-based districts. Since 2016, we've identified some issues in the code where some of the language maybe doesn't align with the intent. There's also been some text amendments that have created issues in this chapter. So this is just an amendment to clean up that chapter and make sure all the language aligns with the intent and it's consistent throughout. Any questions?
Council, any questions, comments? That was the quickest update I don't think any of us, Councilmember Mono.
I mean, what are the updates? Can you just maybe high level what some of those inconsistencies are that we're trying to remedy?
So for instance, probably like one of the biggest ones is there's a current stipulation in the code where if you're doing an addition that's either 25% of the building footprint or 1,000 square feet, whichever is less, if you are doing an addition of 1,000 square feet, you don't need to meet any building form standards, and that includes height, setbacks. So there's also no time limit, so you could just do those back to back to back to back to build a whole new building that doesn't meet any of the code in that chapter.
Okay, that seems bad.
It's not good.
Not great.
All right, great.
Council, any other questions or concerns? All right, thank you all for being here. Council, although we are trending radically ahead of time now, I'm glad because we have a few other things to discuss today. But we have converted items number 3 and number 4 to written briefings. Item number 3 is the projecting business signs zoning text amendment. And item number 4 is the zoning text amendment to allow single-family attached dwellings in select commercial zones. Please be sure to review this and see your liaison or any of the council policy analysts with any questions to help with that. But with that, I will be looking for... Oh, Ben, are you ready to move on to the capital improvements? All right. With that, we just bought ourselves extra time to talk about CIP. So we're going to welcome Ben Ludke, Council Policy Analyst, to the table. And Ben, we are now fully responsive to you.
So last time we got through the first 20 projects in the CIP funding log. We could pick up on page 8 where we left off, or if it would be helpful, I can go through the projects over those first 20 that council members called out at the last briefing, if that summary would be helpful.
Council, please give the man some feedback as to what you prefer. We're hearing that works. Thank you.
So some quick feedback on...
You want quick feedback or just start on page 8?
Yeah.
I'd just start on page 8 and move forward.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Where we left off.
Yeah, continue on the list. That's the option, right? Continue on the list from after 20. Perfect.
We typically go page by page. So on page 8, it's helpful if council members have any questions about the projects as we're reviewing that page, or if you wanted to flag any project to potentially add funding or shift funding away, then between now and your August meeting, staff will coordinate with the departments on bringing back options and responses to your questions.
And can you remind me, Ben, did we end up adding any funds that are unaccounted for currently in this log?
You have not decided as a body. There is almost $1.9 million available in additional funding. So
that are not accounted for in the recommended.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You did add 250,000 from the new growth, which was higher than anticipated. So those have no funding recommendations, and those are included on the last page, those green highlighted totals. That tells you how much funding is available for each of the different sources. The 250,000 is in the general fund column, so it can go to any project. The other 1.9 million, those are also general fund dollars from past completed or canceled CIP projects. So that's still a question before the council is, do you want to use some or all of that 1.9 million? And if you do, I would update the log so that funding is reflected here for your use.
Theoretically, we have 2.2 before I have to start hyperventilating about my fiscally conservative fears.
If you wanted to use all of the recaptured funds, yes.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, guys. I just wanted to set that stage for us.
And I do want to highlight number 23. You did add $2 million in the annual budget for the Livable Streets traffic calming program. So there's no funding shown in the funding log, but in the annual budget, you already approved $2 million for Livable Streets to make sure that those 4 transportation planners you added 2 years ago can continue to work on the program and not have a delay in implementing it.
And can you help? Because I always get this mixed up in my head when we're talking. The difference between complete streets and livable streets.
So Livable Streets is the traffic calming program where it looks at the neighborhood level. Instead of pitting one street against another street, neighbor against neighbor, the entire city has been split up into 113 residential zones. So it funds an entire zone to do traffic calming in a more holistic fashion. Complete Streets is now something that's funded with street reconstruction and street overlay. It used to be its own category, but they've been combined. So when you're funding a reconstruction or an overlay of a street, the Complete Street features are to include multimodal, so not just cars, but also including improvements for cyclists, people who may be in wheelchairs, ADA accessibility, pedestrians. It's sidewalk to sidewalk, making sure that there are multimodal infrastructure improvements, not just reconstructing the pavement and nothing else around.
All right, thank you.
And so that also got additional funding this past year budget.
Complete streets and
Complete
livable
streets.
streets.
Yeah.
Yep.
With the number on number 24, will that ensure complete ADA accessibility for the art barn, or will there still be outstanding issues that we'll have to address in the future?
I don't know if it's complete ADA. We'll ask.
Thank you.
I know it does make multiple ADA improvements inside.
Bar's real low on that building, so.
Ben, will you ask also how many, if the Arts Council tracks how many people come to this building in a year's basis, or how long? You know, I've been in the building a couple times, and I would like to know when we're prioritizing funding. You know, certainly it's an important piece of the equation, but I just want to know how impactful this money will be. To know how many people are coming to the building.
Okay. And maybe how many events they hold, other metrics.
Some other metrics that are important to understand the value of that investment.
You got it.
Council, anything else on page 8? Okay.
Moving on to page 9. I do want to mention on number 26, the Police Department Training Center. This is not funding to build a new training center. That would be a much larger cost. This is something that you could ask the administration to consider as they're updating the city's impact fees plan. The section on police, it could possibly cover some of those costs of actually creating the new fire training center.
Council, any other questions on page
I'm,
9?
I'm just,
Councilmember Dugan.
I am interested in number 27. I know it's not my district, but I am interested in that hawk light. But that goes back to the street calming and livable streets on that area. I know hawk lights are expensive, but they are also nice to have and valuable. So if we didn't have we couldn't get the hawk light, could we get something else that would do something similar to that ISA hawk light? But I'm interested in pursuing those improvements. Because there's the flashing ones, there's the hawk lights, and then so there's other things that we can do that may be a little bit less than $500,000, and we could get a couple with just the same amount of impact.
I think that this is an important one. I love to be able to make even small improvements on moving the needle a little bit towards the goal. I wonder to Councilmember Dugan's point, how this connects with Vision Zero, and if we have, I don't remember any money allocated to the Vision Zero program, and if that's if there is a priority of needs, if this one is one of those. I mean, not necessarily this specific one, but crossings around schools and things like this, and maybe we need to start allocating some funding directed to this one issue. So I would love to see how all of these things connect: livable streets, and Vision Zero, and the other streets program.
You might remember the new citywide transportation plan that the council reviewed and adopted a couple months ago. It has a section on Vision Zero and some specific action implementation steps, but we'll ask the Transportation Division to try and show from that master plan, the 20-year vision, to this CIP, how those are going to advance the Vision Zero and what they see as unfunded next steps. Does that help?
I think that helps a lot, and to me, it's almost like a ranking, right? And this fits this overall goal and this priority, this high, but it doesn't fit these other goals, and it's lower in the priority. So to me, it's sort of like building a matrix, and I know that's probably very complicated, but if every community in our city really wants, this is so loud today, and it wants some protection on this, for street crossings and violence and vehicle violence. So thank you.
And it feels like a deeper discussion because now we've identified 3 separate city initiatives that are hovering around the same thing, but could have distinct functions, right? The complete streets, the livable streets, and then the Vision Zero. So maybe some additional clarity on, like, does Vision Zero prioritize something different, and does it carry its own funding? Or once the Vision Zero project is prioritized, does it take from livable streets or from the complete streets? Like, maybe some clarity on all of that would be helpful to me as we move through that.
This is another example of where a capital asset plan, that 5-year CIP plan, would help crystallize. Is this one of the top priorities for the council? If it is, what are the programs and the ideal annual funding amounts to achieve that longer term policy, and then mapping those out so that you can review and update them annually. I think that's where it all comes together.
Yeah, especially in the middle of a growth trajectory when we're planning for increased crossings over by the Fair Park on a more regular basis, right? Like, the demand on us is only going to increase, and I would be really frustrated if new infrastructure cuts in line for people who have been waiting for forever, especially knowing that our tax increment is preempted in some of these cases, and we're going to have to make some really strategic decisions with our dollars in-house. So I think I'd love to see some energy spent on that and offering us some clarity on how to proceed most wisely. Council, any other questions on page 9? Okay, then can we move on to page 10? So I actually Would love to put a plug in for number 29. This was one of those things that when I came in, accidentally became something that I was introduced to that I became passionate about. So on the Jordan River Trail, we've had a garden that started out as noted, like the stated purpose of it was to be civilly disobedient, to provide food growing in an area that was previously fallow. That, of course, has all kinds of complications when you try to normalize it and standardize it. But at the same time, losing this capability and surrendering the land back to just goat head creation that pops my bike tires doesn't feel like a stellar use either. So Wasatch Community Gardens, for probably 2 years now, has been in talks of what could they do, not just with this community initiated garden, but it goes all the way from just south of the Cottonwood Dog Park to just bordering the Northwest Rec Center. It is a completely fallow piece of ground that is known for popping bike tires. It just creates goat heads. You can't even really, like, people who are unsheltered can't even really camp there because of how unruly the vegetation is. And so Georgina, being the incredibly creative human that she is, was like, let's do a food forest. And I think this is remarkable. Wasatch Community Gardens is a really trusted partner. Everything they do for us has a history of excellence. I love the idea of being able to generate accessible, whole, healthy foods. I love the educational component with it. If we're going to be prioritizing things that haven't been prioritized on the log, I really would love it if my co-counselors would consider number 29 and make this one of the things that we make happen this year.
To this point, certainly this is a piece of land that the community wanted to improve by themselves, and there was a lot of issues on that and how they went about it. But this seems to be building a structure around around it, and you're sort of also capitalizing on the community drive to make something good out of the weeds. And my question is this their new garden to a new Wasatch community garden, but there was a community garden there. So, the fact that there was one before, it wouldn't qualify for any bond funding, right? Because it needs to be a new asset, not a repair of an old asset. Will this be qualifying as fixing a new asset?
So 2 things on funding eligibility. You're thinking of the $9 million from the Parks bond for the Jordan River corridor. I think those funds could be used on this project. Yes.
Okay.
We also, Councilmember Wharton isn't with us, but he had also flagged this as a project of interest and asked if impact fees could be used. We received feedback from the administration that there's questions about the contamination of the soil and additional testing they wanted to do about some feasibility. So the conservative approach would be to fund this with general fund dollars. After those soil testing has been done, and once it's confirmed that construction can proceed, then reimbursing the general fund with parks impact fees.
Will you walk me through that? How is the contamination of the soil affect the funding, the funding mechanism or the funding budget that we use for it? Explain. Sorry, I'm lost.
So I don't have the technical details, but there's uncertainty about how bad the contamination is, and that could impact the funding level needed to build the project. So if for some reason, worst case scenario, that came back and it's cost prohibitive, then the city, if you had funded this with parks impact fees, but that is not used to build it, then those park impact fees would have to be recaptured, and you'd have to potentially recapture them with interest depending on how long it goes by. So the conservative approach is to do the reimbursement after it is able to be confirmed and constructed.
Because the testing is not eligible for parked impact fees, would any remediation be?
No. Okay. Impact fees can't be used to cure deficiencies or do maintenance. It has to be adding
Both
capacity.
of those would have to be from another source, but then the actual laying of the water lines, those are all park impact fee eligible.
Yes.
And well, to this point, then, could we ask for clarification of what the estimate cost of studying the soil contamination will be? Because if we are no, certainly I'm very much supportive of the project, and I would love to see the whole amount, but that is a key piece of the equation. And no, maybe this comes out to be X amount of money, and we can put all that money there and said, if this goes forward, then maybe we have commitment from this body to find the money for the next step.
The 385, is that the total cost of the project, or is that the testing and remediation?
That is the best guess for the total cost of the project. And it's two separate projects. There's the food forest, where that's just empty land right now. And then next to it is the community garden that you mentioned earlier that was already built, but this would bring it up to city standards.
So the 385 could be broken down into two phases, so to speak. So you could
Yes, it's
after
Both are conditioned on
the remediation.
the testing and potential
Absolutely.
remediation.
it's a little more expensive to do them separately, but I do have that cost breakout if you want to look at phasing it.
Yeah.
I'd be interested in knowing what the first step is in appropriating, knowing that park impact fees would be an eligible.
But I'm still confused. Where do we get the money? We still have to have a budget amendment to fund the remediation.
The budget amendment would be reimbursing the general fund
Okay,
with parks impact fees
gotcha.
after construction.
After construction.
I think finding this breakdown will be useful so we can make decisions, but I think, 385,000 in a perfect scenario is what it will cost, but it could be a worst case scenario where it's much more expensive. But I would like to know how much it costs the studying of the land and then the two phases, and then we can decide here how we feel about it. Thank you.
As long as we're making progress on this, I'm happy.
Madam Chair, to clarify though, the 385 does include the testing,
Yes.
and it includes some amount of remediation, but based on the results of testing, that dollar amount might go up.
Correct. And there is $100,000 in non-departmental for environmental testing and remediation that's available to projects for any general fund department. So that could be another source, but those are typically for unexpected testing needs.
I'll just share, since we brought this one up. We've invested in Wasatch Community Gardens in my district, and for a relatively small CIP dollar amount, they do quite a bit. So I am interested in this. I guess I'm gonna wait to see where all of our numbers come out at the end. It seems like we still have some money to spend. So my initial thought is that I'm supportive of this, but I'm gonna wait until the very end to make a determination of which projects I'll support. But the concept and the organization are things that I believe in.
If we need to, if we end up, at a place where we're trying to spend $3 million and we only have 2.2, I would be okay with allocating just enough general fund dollars to do the testing and remediation, understanding that pending an outcome, we could do a budget amendment to appropriate the park impact fees later once we have the all clear, correct?
That would be an option, yeah.
I mean, this area needs the investment, and I share your vision on this.
Especially, they're so good. Like, diverse communities will be able to plant crops that are native to their diet. Like, how exciting is that on the west side? Okay, anything else on page 10? Okay, let's move on to page 11, please.
I do. On 31, on the bus shelters, the benches, the trash cans for the routes. I know that the UTA lines that UTA pays for, they put new finally they got the shelters up. In the last month and a half or so, they put the shelters along all the bus lines, but they didn't put the shelter, as far as I know, and the lines on the bus lines that Salt Lake City is funding. And I'm sure that maybe this connects with that issue there. What is there? I'm just trying to find out how that works, because we are pitching a lot of money for these lines, these bus routes. I guess I keep calling them lines. These bus routes to happen, but I also need to. I would love clarity on one thing that just popped in my head that I think is an important piece. Is what is the legal document, if there is any document out there, that says that Salt Lake City will eventually, if the bus route is successful, whatever that means, UTA will embrace that route as their own, and Salt Lake City will be free from those funds. I would like to know where that exists, because I've been told that is a real thing. And I would love to know how that process works. And every time that we talked internally about this, I'm a little lost on where this document or what that is. Because what is the benchmark to know when a bus line is successful and when we can use those funds to maybe start a new one. But to this point, how do we improve those to the point of making sure that those bus lines are successful, making sure that they are sheltered from winter, especially from winter snow. So I would love to see any information that can help me illustrate this point, and if there's any data, since this is a UTA sort of job, I would love to see if we can find some information from them or any other place in the administration that help us understand the need on this. So yeah, I don't know. That was a long
I heard two questions.
verbal thing.
On the question of when will the bus routes that the city pays to have a higher level of service on every 15 minutes or more, when will those receive bus shelters? I don't know. We'll ask. On the question about when does UTA take on the cost of operating a route, there was an email while I was out from Kira Luke. I'll bump it up. It was on June 27th, and it was responses from the Transportation Division to council questions about the addendum number 8 that's on your formal meeting agenda tonight to pay for the next year of those frequent transit bus routes. There is an Excel spreadsheet that is a cost calculator that has the technical details about the base level of service that UTA covers and where the city-sponsored enhanced level of service kicks in and how that cost is calculated each year. So it is pretty technical. It might be helpful to sit down and walk through it, but we do have those details. There comes a point, and we saw this with the 600 North bus route, where the route it has enough ridership and it is considered regionally important that UTA fully takes it on. But the other 5 routes that the city has identified for the frequent bus service, UTA covers the baseline and the city is paying for the enhanced, more frequent bus service.
Thank you for bumping that. I would love to see that.
I do think that this is a can of worms. I have a constituent who every time she sees me is like, what about the benches? What about the benches? And I keep telling her that's a UTA thing. Like this is a precedent that if we choose to set, we'll open cans of worms.
And I think the transportation department has worked with UTA on the plan to roll all that out. And I know it took a little bit longer because there were some supply chain issues on the actual structures. But that's why you saw a lot of the platforms were installed, and then they were just waiting for the the enclosure. But I think our transportation department and streets group was working with UTA on a plan of rolling these out. And they should probably have some more details on what routes.
Yeah.
But is this the funding for that though?
This is for the shelter.
This could be part of that. They may have a plan already, and this could be in their plan at some point, the 209 line. But I think that would be, we could ask that, but it's a good question. We should ask them how they're rolling out the different stations.
Madam Chair, I'm not opposed to us supporting with city dollars enhanced infrastructure at bus stops, trash cans, benches, shelters. I am not supportive, though, however, of us through the CIP process choosing which bus line that goes to. I think it should be similar to how we've done several of our other programs recently, where we would ask the city, the traffic calming, for instance, and the condition of streets. We have a citywide sort of assessment of where those needs actually are, and then we can use that to fund additional infrastructure at buses. So I wouldn't be supportive of this as it's written, but I wouldn't mind the administration coming back to us with a suggestion for how we may be able to support making the bus stops better throughout the city. I don't know that we're going to get that in this CIP adoption, so that would be a future request, I guess.
Council, any other questions or concerns? Anything else on page 11? All right, then should we move on to page 12?
I wanted to speak on item number 35. This was a constituent application, and in theory, I'm pretty supportive of it. As far as the equipment, it's definitely a use in the community, in the neighborhood. So it looks like they need new concrete footings, and there's just a lot of erosion there. So if we're able to, that's something that I really want us to consider.
Where's Fault Line Park?
It's up on 400 South and 11th East.
Oh.
Right behind over there. So it's right on a hill. It's really beautiful. The grass is really dried out, but it is a space, and right next door are actually some apartments that are pretty affordable. So there's children regularly there. Unfortunately, there's a high need in that area. And it's just difficult to get around to the green space. I think the closest one is going to be over by the U area as far as park
And
access.
this would also be eligible for parked impact fees since it's new equipment and surfacing?
Most of it, my understanding, is
It would-
replacing
it's not
existing
new.
equipment.
Yeah, so there is a playground there currently.
So
So because of replacement, it's not
it's not eligible for parks impact fees. We can double check. Sometimes there's a portion that's eligible, like 10 or 20%. So we'll see if that's an option.
Yeah, number 35. I'm going to beat on my continuous drum about number 33. I just don't have enough information. This is in addition to the $3 million that we allocated in the budget. Number 33, we allocated money during regular budget for Green Loop. Was it just 300,000?
I'm remembering a small amount of funding, but it wasn't construction, and I don't remember 3 million. It might have been on the RDA side.
Conceptually, I think this is a wonderful thing. I think it's something that our city should have. I support it being part of Reimagine Nature. I'm struggling with the timing of it and justifying why now during an $85 million GO bond where other projects have been prioritized. I'm open to being convinced, and I know we have some briefings and other things that will lay the groundwork, but until I have those, I continue to be skeptical of the timing, not of the concept or of the city need for it.
I would love to. I lost my bubble. I would love to learn a little more about the. You know, if there is any more a portion, you know, a specific segment, and learn a little more about what that segment is and how that segment was selected. I know that there is some streets here. But a little more details on that. Maybe we can start with some, I think some, on the sake of making sure that we are all on the same page, because there is many of these projects were talked before this council, and many of us are in different levels of knowledge, and there's a lot has been talked about this. So maybe this could trigger some small group meetings to not only set the historical context between this, but also understand the administration vision on this and how they plan to move forward in the future for that. But I would love to have some meetings on this if that's possible from the administration.
I think during the annual budget, there was the council was interested in a briefing on the Green Loop. I'm not sure if a date has been confirmed for that, but I know that was something we looked into.
We had it tentatively on an agenda. We've been preempted times. So I know that it's coming up, and I know we have some deeper dives into it scheduled for us, but I wouldn't be opposed to small groups to prime the pump now that things are starting to clear off of our plates a little bit. I think these deeper policy points are starting to become more salient as we're getting to a place where we have to make decisions about what we're doing.
I think the presentation will be useful, but I certainly prefer if we can do the presentation, but also have some group meetings so we can take the time to go through the whole thing. I know that there's a lot there to unravel and to understand, and for us to see all the plans that the city adopted over the many years and where this fits in. So I would love to request those. Thank you.
Council, anything else on page 12? Okay, let's move on to page 13, please. Council, we had this scheduled to go until 4:45. We also, following this, have a closed session. And then around 4:45, we had planned our final SEG briefing. I just want to take a pulse. Would you all prefer to push all the way through CIP, potentially using all the way up to that time, or would you like more time for the SEG public briefing later?
Sure, I think I would like more time with the SEG briefing.
Okay, so let's go in here to 4:25 with this, and then we can start our closed session at 4:25, and that will add an extra 20 minutes to our possible public briefing time. Does that work for everyone?
Sure.
Okay. Since we're doing the public hearing, I want to get through as much of this today. So.
On
Okay.
on this page,
Ben, does that sound reasonable to you?
That's great.
number 38, the raised crosswalk, again, going back to the whole street calming initiatives that we have. Again, I think these are important. These are great crosswalks to look at. So, and especially this one where First Step House is right across the street from the Smiths, and they basically have to jaywalk to get there because they don't need to. They're in the middle of the block. Smiths in the middle of the block, and they jaywalk to get across the street. And if you ever drive down that 500 East, there's plenty of them. There's plenty of residents there at First Step, and there's plenty of need to get to Smiths and that area. So this is one that I would think would be wise to have with the raised crosswalk and the mid street sign that says the crosswalk. So I am a proponent of this. It's not a lot of money. It's not my district, but it's not a lot of money, and I think it's an important one. So, and I think probably agree with that.
Thanks. It is in my district, and First Step House has a great operation and residents there that are in great need. I've gone in and toured. Sarah Young did also. This is a really, I think, important infrastructure to help this community have access to the grocery store, but also access to bus routes to different transit because they're allowed to work also in this facility. So it's something that would really significantly help, over 200 people and residents that live and work there.
Anyone else?
I'm willing to support that. I also have been given a tour. Actually, I had to invite myself on a tour because I wanted to see their operation. I'm very impressed with what they're doing for the community. For those who don't know, they're a mental health services organization. They started out as that and then got into affordable housing, and they're providing many, many units of deeply affordable permanent supportive housing to people experiencing mental health disorders in our community. And I was informed when I was on my tour that this is an issue, a safety issue for some of their residents, who many of them don't have cars and really do need to cross the street. And so I'm willing to support that.
All right, anything else on page 13? Let's move on to page 14 then, please.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
is there's I don't know, maybe you don't think it's appropriate now, and that will be totally fine. Unfortunately I haven't had the chance last meeting to mention some of the projects that I have some questions about. No, I'm not lobbying yet for any funding to be moved, but there's a few things in the first portion of this briefing that I would like to highlight, maybe after.
I actually would like to too, but let's push through this
Okay.
and then recapture those first couple.
Thank you.
Anyone on page?
Just on page on number 40, the park, the Poplar Grove lights. I'm just looking at how's this fit into the city's new master lighting plan that we adopted 2 years ago, and I think it's just starting to get rolled out now. How does this fit into that the master plan? Because I know, now I can't remember his name. Who's the head of the lighting program? Joe.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, he gave a presentation at one of the community councils, and it was a wonderful presentation. And I just wanted to know how this fits into his master plan.
Like, is there a category of lighting by color specifically for parks?
Yes,
or
and does he have? And I know he's working on his action lists, so it'd be nice to know where this fits.
We'll ask.
And to follow up that question, will this be could qualify for impact fees, knowing that these are some of them are new? I don't know. Is that like one of those weird places?
No.
This
So
could-
we have used parks impact fees for lighting in parks previously. The nexus is the parks system has expanded capacity when areas are lit, so they can be used at night and otherwise would not. So that's where the capacity expansion comes from, so that you can use the parks impact fees for the lighting if it's new lighting, or if the lighting is like bigger than what was there previously. I think it was baseball fields was the most recent example of that.
That makes sense.
Yep, I got bit by the mosquitoes as we sat there later in the evening. It was glorious. All right, anything else on page 14?
Ben, one more, and I think this is more of an overarching thing. I would love to see if there is a way of recapturing, and maybe it wasn't already mentioned, but recapturing, getting a summary of all the in progress projects that we have funded, this council in the many years, and even before us, that they are still pending and processing. To me, it's important to, when we're giving, for example, in this case, let's say that this council supports this and finds a way to fund these lights. Are we adding yet another thing on public lands, and when, just for setting the expectations to the constituent applications, is this 4 years out? Is this 5 years out? So I know certainly many of the things that we funded in my first year, they're still processing, and I understand why, but just for the sake of explaining that, but I would like to know if there is a possibility to get that update, not only from public lands, but from engineering and the other departments that touch CIP applications. So I would love to see that.
That did come up at the last briefing, and what I heard was all of the council members are interested in getting an update on projects that were already funded and the status, not just are we still working on it, but what % is the design, what are the next steps, is it expected to be completed within the 3-year construction goal in the CIP policy. And we can ask to get that before your next briefing in August. But also longer term, having a publicly accessible location where the council, but members of the public can also check on the status of CIP projects of interest to them. Yeah.
The other reason that I think council members were interested in this is that because there are so many needs right now, and because the construction industry is in such high demand, and so much is going on in our city, it's possible that the city needs more investment in its systems. So right now, the council is focused on appropriating money to more projects. It may be that in addition to appropriating more money to projects, you also need to look at appropriating money to the system of engineers or consulting engineers or people who do the contracting or any of those things. And so from an oversight point of view, that is, I think, a good thing to take a look at. And I don't think there's a better indicator of that than the aging, so to speak, of the funded projects. So.
Chair, I have a question on 42 before we move on from page 14. Ben, I've noticed there's a few different projects, and in my district, I noticed this for certainly, that just to capitalize on the comment made earlier about complete streets, livable streets, and then this acknowledges Vision Zero. Are there any other funding mechanisms outside of CIP that could help us accomplish parts of this application?
So there's always the tool of bonding. I'm not thinking of any existing bond funds that could go to this. In areas of the city that are within census tracts that are of low to moderate income, CDBG funding is a tool, and CDBG can go to public infrastructure and transportation. The timing, if you wanted to evaluate that, is actually really good right now, because every 5 years we have to update our plan to HUD saying, here are what we want to spend the HUD grant dollars on. And the next plan is for 2025 to 2029, and so that's going to be coming to you later this year. So if we talked about sidewalks at the last briefing as potentially an item to add as eligible, but if you wanted to take a broader look at those infrastructure improvements, we could also tell the administration that that is of interest.
Certainly sidewalks, and this is something my constituents really would like to see, and what this specific CIP request is in regards to bike lanes and bulb outs between 200 East and 600 East on 600 South. This is really where we see a lot of trolley square usage and different residents trying to access the markets that are there. So again, this is about increasing safety, which I think we all agree on, but trying to better understand what is the best way to apply our funding model towards this. I want to accomplish this. I also recognize, there might be funding needed in other plans and parts of our city. So I would love if staff could research how we can best accomplish that. And if it's through Ben's recommendation, then I would want to explore that.
The Transportation Division has also been submitting more applications for state and some federal grants.
Okay.
There's been some improvements in state funding available for active transportation, not just for vehicular transportation. So I know that is an improvement in our funding options, but we'll look deeper into that and get back to you.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
Okay, Council, let's move on to page 15, please.
Thank you. Madam Chair, on number 45, the Curtis Park, that's in my neighborhood. That's right behind Foothill Village. And the Foothill Village is going through some redesign, major overhaul. And they're knocking out a whole section of one of the buildings. And that building is going to open up Foothill Village down into the park, down into Curtis Park. And the developer is going to be building stairs that go into the park. And part of the discussions we've had with the developer and also the community is that it'd be nice to see some improvements to Curtis Park. It's a very quiet park. It doesn't get a lot of use, but it also has a playground that you can't really use anymore because it's unsafe. So some constituents put in a request. They broke it down to 3 phases. It's not really mentioned here. The 3 phases are, the first phase is a design of $60,000, and there's a couple of phases about playground. It's just X amount of dollars, and then reimagining the other portion of it. So I looked at this, and I looked at also number 17, project number 17, which is a bunch of playgrounds throughout the city. And in that one, Sunnyside Park is mentioned, but Sunnyside Park is also getting money for the University of Utah baseball stadium. So I just would like to look into moving this park into the Sunnyside Park position, or just funding the first phase of this, which would be the design and planning of what they would do with this park, because I think the developer is also open to maybe augmenting our funding for this park, because it's going to lead into the Foothill Village and allow the community to walk the Foothill Village instead of have to drive all the way around to get there.
Can we get a breakdown of those
Yeah, and-
costs for the design?
Yeah, Ben has it's actually in the design, and Ben has the breakdown. We just discussed this today.
The design, planning, design, and public engagement, phase 1 is $60,000 for the Curtis Park. So in number 17, Sunnyside could be removed and Curtis Park with the $60,000 could be added, or you could just fund $60,000 for number 45. Either way.
And I'm open to moving it to item number 17. I don't know how what public lands had specifically for that, and that might have been done before we actually had the university side of the house. So I'm open to either one. But we don't need $960,000 this first year. We only need right now $60,000. So that's where I'm sitting on this one. So it'd be a lot less than 900,000.
Okay. Anything else on page 16? Or 15, sorry? Let's move on to page 16, please.
Madam Chair. Number 48 is something that I've heard a lot about from my constituents, and I would be interested in supporting this project. I know I generally like to do street improvement projects based on the survey that shows, I just mentioned this 5 minutes ago, that we have an official survey that says here's what streets need improvements. I do think this is a really unique situation on Fayette Avenue. It is number one in the area of the city that is under rapid development pressure, but it's also adjacent to the 9th South off ramp, and it's in a area that the improvement in this street is more than just preventing potholes. It could go quite a long ways. There's quite a bit of encampments that happen there, illegal storage that has happened there, and there is a need for improved parking for that neighborhood. So I would be supportive. I would be interested in looking at 48 again in context with all the rest of the council added items, but I'd at least hope that we can put that on the list and consider it once we look at how our final numbers are shaking out.
All right. Page 17.
Oh, I'm sorry. Number 47 is in District 7, but Fairmont Park, I'm just throwing this out from my perspective. Fairmont Park's getting a lot of attention and a lot of money there, and I look at this and go, there seems to be a lot of technicals here, and I would rather have Councilmember Young in the discussion. So I'd almost like to come back to that one point.
Councilor, Madam Chair, are you saying earmark that for, because this is recommended for funding? Are you saying earmark
it's
that
already
to
recommended? It's already
remove
recommended.
the funding,
yes,
potentially?
Yeah.
I'm supportive of looking at that as well.
Yeah, but I want to have Councilmember Young here when
Yes.
I have a discussion.
I agree with that. I would love to see what funding we have from the bond going there. I know that that's one of the parks that District 7 the Councilmember of District 7 selected to be the beneficiary from one of the district money. So I would love to see how that could be potentially offset some of that.
Awesome. And then, for number 48, Darren, that one also I was interested in, so I think we need to look at that. Thanks.
All right, page 17. So I do want to say 6.25 million is quite excessive for a CIP request at this moment. But the possibility that the RAC could increase revenue through being able to host the next level size of tournaments is really interesting to me. especially with the annexation request happening at the Hunter Stables area and the possibility that that development would complement what goes on there with the possibility of a convention hotel, amenities so that people can eat and be in the area. So I don't know that I'm asking, I definitely am not asking for 6.25 million right now, but if there's some way to give this attention and create an actual strategy in conjunction with those development possibilities, I really think it's an opportunity for the city in the Northwest Quadrant to do some good things, and to be strategic about how we advocate for the developing out of that area up there. So I don't know what that looks like. I would like to take some time and marinate on it, but I also would like you all to be aware. I think that's a possibility.
Is there any way to phase something like this? And has the administration put a, put some thought into phasing some of these investments? And to the point of increasing revenue, which is something that you always been very keen and supportive of. I would love to see some of those, how this investment will pay off, and if the administration is willing to share some of that or to study some of that, that will be very important for me.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I believe there are options for phasing this, and a question came up about parks impact fees also being a funding source, since this is partially vacant land where sport fields would be built. So that's another option we'll look into.
Anything else? Let's move on to page 18, please.
I would love to highlight two in this page, but let me start with number 53, which is the Peace Gardens and the funding to add more safety to the garden. And we keep losing pieces of art from the garden, and it is, I'm sure, very frustrating for the public lands employees. Certainly very frustrating for the community to see something damaged. It's almost as if every morning we go to the park and we expect something to happen, to have happened at night. And I really would like us not to wait too much longer to add safety to this park. So I will share with you some of the thoughts I have about where to find this money, but 53 is certainly one of those very important to me, and I've been talking about this for a little while now, for those that remember that. And 51 is the other one, and it's the Free the Game. It's an organization, a Utah organization that is encouraging and incentivizing soccer in our communities. Is actually very successful, and they are just incredible on how they are able to not only get the Real Salt Lake players to be part of it and match their own donations and bring money to the table to our city, and they have proven that to us already, that they have invested their own money into our parks to create these little teeny areas to play this soccer. Their overall goal is to make sure that our kids are playing it and hopefully win some tournaments in the future if the United States has better players, if they start playing younger. I have a hard time believing that, being from Argentina, but it's but I want to believe that our kids want to play it if they have more chances to play it, and they have a commitment to make sure that they are successful. In one of the parks in my district, they partner up with Public Lands. They put free balls in there for kids to go grab them, and the balls for the most part stay there, which is amazing. Kids will grab them, play, and put them back, and they will activate the park. They will bring players. I'm just very excited about what the synergy that they're bringing to the table. So I would love to see some of that happen across our city. So
The futsal in District 1 is always in use. It's amazing over at Constitution Park. So, and I amplify the need to do something over at the Peace Gardens.
Yeah. And you have very few opportunities where someone is saying, we want something, but we're also willing to put money on the table and also activate it and look after it and replace the balls. I mean, like, to me, one of those few opportunities.
Anything else on page 18?
Just I appreciate that there's alleyway dollars in here still. That money has actually really benefited my district in some places that it really needed benefit. So I know it's kind of specific to 5 because we have so many lane miles of alley compared to other districts, but thank you. I'm glad that that's in here.
I almost pointed it out, but I thought maybe the joke was played out. But thanks for not letting it die. All right, page 19. Anything else?
Again, Madam Chair, I think I hesitate to say this because I know I'm highlighting several things. 57 is something that I'd also just like to see on the list for us to consider. I don't expect that I have a few in District 5 that I'm hopeful. I don't expect that all of them will be able to, but I'd like to keep 57 on that list of at least potentially considering it once we look at the final numbers. It's a small request for First Encampment Park, and it's been a multi-year request that community. They have a very engaged Friends of group, which I think is always a positive when we're putting city dollars to something that there's sweat equity in as well.
I'd also like to see if the Church of the Predominant Faith maybe throw in some money there. Matches.
The who? Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
The church, the local church.
Yeah.
All right, page 20. We good? Let's move on to page 21 then.
Yeah, on page 20, number 68, I think the project idea in theory is good. And same, I would ask Steph, I think there's a lot of projects where, are you on page 20?
Which number, Councilmember Lopez Chavez?
20? It's number 60. I think there's a lot of projects that we could find funding for or make a plan for. I think in theory, this is great to bring this type of visibility, especially in a neighborhood, in a prominent neighborhood in our city. So I love it. I don't know what funding we could allocate to it, but I do think there's other programs that exist that could help cover this. I don't know, staff, if you've done any research on that, or Ben.
I also love this idea and concept, and I think that I'm interested in seeing what we could do on that.
I think long term, I'd love to see what maintaining a like prominent, visible neighborhood would look like. If that's banners, if that's exactly what's being allocated here. I've heard of lots of residents applying for rainbow crosswalks. I think we need to come up with a plan to actually identify and look at that instead of having these individual approaches, because we get them year after year trying to bring more rainbow visibility. But I think we can do more than that, such as highlighting the history of Harvey Milk Boulevard and trying to tie and combine all those murals and activity that's happening there.
Didn't we try to fund the crosswalks a couple years ago, and it was about $500,000. We couldn't find the money that year. It was just to paint. They paint the crosswalk.
Was because it was not to? It's because we were looking at the more permanent solution, which was a colored asphalt or something?
I think that the request, I mean, this is in concept similar to that request. And I think it was the reason why it was so expensive for that was because of the cost of the colored asphalt, not just the paint.
It was actually colored polymer that was inlaid in the pavement, which was the most expensive option. There were less expensive options for colored concrete, and each color had a different price. And then there was just the painting, which was not CIP eligible because it was a smaller amount and it was short term and it would fade over time. But this is definitely similar, but it has different amenities
Right.
than that previous one.
Also, I think part of it was that we had a number of areas across the city that needed
Yeah.
crosswalks for
Okay.
a higher level of safety requirements. Because I remember having that conversation, and I think we also said, because we kind of look at street calming projects, and on this one, I think I'd like to see possibly a breakdown on, say, hey, we're going to do the bike racks, we're going to do this, phase it out, because there's a lot of needs. And I go back to the street calming, I go back to the street infrastructure and say, hey, we have a lot of that needs across the city, and if you could break this one down into a couple phases, then that would be amenable, and you still get the same thing, but you can also spread that out.
So we've now reached the time that we said we were going to set for this. We have a few pages left, and we want to go back. While we do have a public hearing, we do have time for additional public briefings and to work through this before a vote, correct?
Yep, there's a second public hearing on August 13th,
Okay.
and you have another briefing on August 13th as well. The deadline under the Utah Fiscal Procedures Act is adopting the capital projects budget by September 1st. So you also have your second meeting in August if another briefing is needed then.
Perfect. So council, I think we got through a nice chunk of these today. Let's take our time to advocate for our special interests, and if we'll finish this on the 13th.
Madam Chair, do you want me to maybe mention the other ones at in the next meeting or during?
Could we maybe do that in an email exchange as we do that, and then we definitely have at least one more time to bring it up all together verbally too.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. With that, I will look for a motion to move into closed session for the purpose of advice of council.
Madam Chair, I move that we go into closed session for the purpose of advice of council.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Pui and a second from Dugan. I'll roll call this. Dugan?
Yes.
Lopez Chavez?
Aye.
Mono?
Yes.
Pui? Wharton?
Yes.
He said yes, but we didn't hear it. And I'm a yes, that's unanimous. We are in closed session. When we are done, we will return to work session. allowing us that time. I'm going to ask Katie Lewis, City Attorney, to come to the table. We are going to have our follow-up for the Capital City Revitalization Zone Participation Agreement. Katie, I'm going to turn the time over to you.
Thank you, Council Chair and Council members. I briefed you on the high-level terms of the draft participation agreement last Tuesday, and you all received, and the final negotiated agreement was made public on Friday. I thought it might be helpful to give a brief overview of the agreement, and then I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, unless there are questions now that you'd like to start with.
Council? All right, Katie.
Great, okay. As a reminder, we are operating under SB 272, which requires certain negotiations to happen and a process to happen before Salt Lake City can vote to impose a 0.5 sales tax for the purpose of revitalizing certain areas of downtown. The first step is to receive an application from an owner of a major league sports franchise that plays its home games in the Delta Center, which we did in April. The next step is to negotiate a participation agreement for the use of sales tax that Salt Lake City will impose throughout the city. That's the 0.5 sales tax that we refer to as the revitalization sales tax. That negotiation has resulted in the final agreement, which you all received on Friday and were briefed on Tuesday. The potential vote that you all are considering tonight is for two things. One is an endorsement of the project area, which is defined under Utah law as up to 100 acres generally surrounding the Delta Center. There is a distinction between the project area and the area identified in the participation agreement where the sales tax will be spent. So the project area is identified in the agreement, and it's blocks both east and west of the Delta Center. The participation agreement is the agreement between Salt Lake City and the applicant, Smith Entertainment Group, on how and where $900 million will be spent. That area is the Delta Center and 2 blocks east of the Delta Center. And the intention under the agreement is that Smith Entertainment Group will take that $900 million and use it to remodel the Delta Center for both NBA and NHL home games, and also construct a sports, entertainment, convention, and culture district adjacent to the Delta Center. So you will be voting tonight on the project area, which is that 100 acres, and to endorse the participation agreement. If you vote yes on both of those, they will be sent to the Revitalization Zone Committee, which was created by the legislature, which will have 30 days to review the agreement, discuss it in a public meeting, and either approve the participation agreement or not approve it. If they do not approve it, they can send it back to Salt Lake City with comments, and we can go through this process again of negotiating with Smith Entertainment Group. The major deal points of the participation agreement include, as I mentioned, remodeling the Delta Center and construction of the district. And the agreement requires Smith Entertainment Group to utilize sustainable development materials in the remodel of the Delta Center and sustainable development materials, and incorporate in the construction bidding process access for small minority, veteran, or women-owned contractors in the construction of the district. In addition, the participation agreement requires Smith Entertainment Group to execute a development agreement with Salt Lake City, which will include design guidelines for the district prior to spending any money on the construction of the district. The participation agreement requires that all construction that is utilizing the $900 million must be completed within 10 years of execution of the participation agreement. Does anyone have any questions about that? If not, I will quickly run through the public benefits for everyone.
Council? Katie, we're safe to go on.
Great. The participation agreement identifies a number of public benefits in exchange for that commitment of $900 million of public investment. The first public benefit is the home game covenant, which is the commitment by the Smith Entertainment Group that the NBA team and the NHL team will play all of their home games at the Delta Center. That includes preseason, regular season, and playoff games at the Delta Center. In addition, we've negotiated other public benefits with Smith Entertainment Group. These include a ticket fee. Starting on July 1, 2025, Smith Entertainment Group will impose a ticket fee on all tickets sold at events at the Delta Center, and that it will be a sliding scale. So for a ticket that costs $25 or less, the fee will be $1. For a ticket between $25 and $200, the fee will be $2. And for a ticket over $200, the fee will be $3. That money will be remitted to Salt Lake City for a city-managed account that can be used by the city for workforce and family-sized housing initiatives and other public initiatives. Some of those are identified in the participation agreement, and I'll just identify that as $5 million as a commitment to Japantown and $5 million as a commitment to public art within the district. Other public benefits include various community support and workforce development initiatives. I went into those in greater detail last Tuesday, so I'll hit them quickly now. That includes apprenticeship programs during the construction of the district and the operation and maintenance of the district. College internship programs, those will be paid college internships. High school shadowing programs. Annual lectures and speaking engagements in our high schools and middle schools from NBA and NHL teams and players and members of SEG personnel. Youth programming, SEG is going to commit $2 million for youth basketball and hockey programming in Salt Lake City, and free and subsidized tickets to NBA and NHL home games. The workforce and community initiatives are focused on individuals from communities of economically disadvantaged families. That is identified as families that are eligible for free or reduced lunch within Salt Lake City. And Salt Lake City will identify areas and high schools and middle schools that we would like SEG to focus on. In addition to the community and workforce initiatives, the participation agreement also has a commitment from SEG to design and construct gathering spaces, including an outdoor space, walkways, and event spaces within the district. SEG has committed to those being welcoming and inclusive, and they will be owned and operated by SEG, but the rules of operation will include a statement affirming SEG's support of non-discriminatory behavior on the basis of race, creed, color, ethnicity, national origin, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, age, and physical or mental ability. In addition, on those gathering spaces, SEG and the city will identify on an annual basis 2 mutually agreed upon dates of 3 days each between May and September that the city or a city identified organization can use those spaces free of charge for events and festivals. In addition, SEG is coordinating with the city on efforts to revitalize and redevelop Japantown. That includes mandatory meetings for twice a year for the first 36 months with members designated by the Japanese Church of Christ and the Buddhist Temple to talk about SEG's progress and planning efforts and to receive input from Japantown about the revitalization of Japantown. They also will seek to incorporate in the district development activation of 100 South, minimizing the number of loading docks on 100 South, creating pedestrian connections and spatial buffers between the district and the Japanese Church of Christ, using commercially reasonable efforts to incorporate Japanese architectural or landscaping elements into 100 South, and work with the Japanese American community to develop historical markers relating to Japantown's history, which will be paid for. The fabrication and installation will be paid for through the public benefit account. An additional public benefit is the construction of a 1,000 square foot public safety building within the district to house security and Salt Lake City Police Department members. And as I discussed before, a $5 million commitment from the public benefit account for public art, which will include a commitment from SCG and Salt Lake City to develop a procurement process that includes the Salt Lake City Arts Council and provides opportunities for local artists to compete for these public art initiatives. Those are the public benefits. I'm happy to answer any questions or talk about any other aspects of the participation agreement which you have received.
Thank you, Katie. Council, it's a chance for you to ask questions of Katie. We also want to acknowledge that we have SAG leadership in the room, and we're thankful to Mike Mon for joining us online. I also want to acknowledge the leaders of the Japanese American community who've been pivotal partners, and thank you for welcoming us and helping us through these negotiations, as well as I see Steve Brozovich from the Utah Symphony, Utah Opera, another entity that has a lot at stake here. So thank you all for joining us and being part of these deliberations. Council, if you'll direct any questions, concerns, comments you have. Councilmember Lopez Chavez.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to indulge the public and read, I know you mentioned, Katie, two motions. There is a third one, so I wanted to read it, if that's all right with my colleagues real quick, just to put it on the record. Motion 3 allows us to adopt with legislative intent. And if staff wants to help describe what legislative intent is, I would appreciate that, but I wanted to read this real quick. An option that I'd like us to consider tonight will read as moving the council to adopt the resolution endorsing the Capital City Revitalization Zone project area and the participation agreement between Salt Lake City and Smith Entertainment Group. I further move the council request a report from the city's financial advisors on financing options, including bonding, to fully implement the 2021 Japantown Design Strategy infrastructure upgrades and enhancements, and that the administration recommend a preferred funding option. It is the intent of the council to consider these funding options for potential action this fiscal year. I further move, in order to ensure an efficient development process on this transformational project, the city and SEG commit to continue working with each other on the following issues and commit to memorializing these in future development agreements. That is, to establish a construction mitigation process, recognizing the likely disruption to the flow of pedestrian and vehicular traffic and the potential impact that may have on residents and businesses in the downtown. SEG will have a hotline or central point of contact to address construction issues. This could include a hotline and/or ombudsman who would serve as a central point of contact and coordination between Smith Entertainment Group, Salt Lake City, property owners, and the public. Their role would be to address concerns, answer questions, and help mitigate any negative impacts on local businesses during construction of the entertainment district, including but not limited to pedestrian access, sidewalk availability, coverage, or any other necessary remediations, the prioritization of transit development. The city will work with SEG and UTA to prioritize the development of programs and incentives, such as the UTA Tickets as Fare program, that improve public transportation options and promote ridership into the entertainment district and downtown Salt Lake City. The SEG liaisons outlined in the participation agreement will include in their report to the city the steps and progress they have made to maximize transit opportunities related to the district and future regional connections into downtown. Final comprehensive planning process for phase 2, a thorough and inclusive planning process. There's been an edit. Comprehensive planning process for phases. A thorough and inclusive planning process is essential for the phases of the entertainment district. This process should involve outreach to all stakeholders, including the public and city stakeholders, to collaboratively create and develop reuse plans for this area with an emphasis on design that maximize opportunities for pedestrian access, connectivity, and walkability. These legislative intents are something that my district is really excited about. I think that's my final comment in regards to this motion.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilmember Pui.
Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity to speak to this. And I I just cannot. I don't think most people in the city will know the amount of work that you, Katie, but many people supporting you around, and some of our staff here in the city and the administration have done to be at this place right now today. And most people will know about this agreement as it is published, but they will never know about the amount of work and the movement between and the negotiations to get to this place. It is an impressive list of public benefits. In my travels with the RDA this last year, I was able to learn about public benefits for stadiums, actually a hockey stadium in another state. And when I shared some of those documents with you, I was hoping to see some of those things in there. And I'm impressed to see them here, and then yet some other more important ones too. And they touch close to me and what I wish to see. I hope that this is the beginning of a new relationship for the benefit of our city. I understand that there is a lot of our neighbors that are not going to really understand the value of these things, but it will be on me and maybe all of us to explain what the value of these things are, and how the economic vitality of downtown is key to the success of this city, and to be able to pay for our infrastructure and to pay for our our cars that move around the city to help pave and to help fix potholes and whatnot. So I just a thank you to you and everybody involved in this to be in both sides of the aisle, to be at this moment right now, because it's just impressive to see this list.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Wharton? We're good? I think one of the things for me is how big. I will probably never again in my life deal with something that not only has this many commas and zeros associated with it, but also has the chance to transform a piece of property that is sitting economically fallow, more or less, for us, that is functionally fallow, that is actually disruptive to walkability, and that contributes very little to our sustainability. I don't want to confuse big and scary with impossible and wrong. I don't ever want us to tone police our constituents. We all are alive at a really scary moment in history, whether we're looking locally at the growth trajectory ahead of us or internationally at geopolitical things. There's a lot to fear. However, having had the privilege of being in here, having had the privilege of sitting with you all, having had the privilege of being in the many, many, many hours of phone, email, Zoom conversations that we've had, having the intimate knowledge of the professionals that negotiated this. Big and scary does not compete with skillful, researched, data-oriented, history-informed, and future-inspired. We know that there are things here that we will go tomorrow, and that's why we've cultivated a relationship. Because when we know better, we will go to our partner and we will do better. At this point, our best knowledge is contained here in this participation agreement in respect to what we're able to do within the parameters set forward by SB 272. This is a good agreement that brings good things to the city, and our partners have made good faith responses to us every time we've brought them something, including literally last night at 9 p.m., asking them for just a few more assurances. So as we move forward on this, I'm sorry to the people who still feel the angst and the fear. But I've moved from fear to determination. I am really proud, most notably, that we're creating a restorative. There's no way to create a completely reparative paradigm for what happened to the Japanese American community, who were, many of them, brought here under ethnic duress, but then also deprived of what they created after being here. But we're modeling with a partner restorative practices for centering dignity, culture, history. I know that's my pet project. That's my little niche. I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of all the opportunities. I'm a nonprofit professional, and I'm watching every nonprofit around me struggle because we don't have a market that can sustain corporate giving at the level of other markets, and our personal philanthropists are tapped out in a post-COVID. This incentivizes increased investment in our economy. This, alongside the vibrant arts scene, encourages Fortune 500 investment, encourages the other investment. Our arts scene gets more vibrant when there are more donors who can deeply invest in them. Our nonprofit economy needs this. Our walkability needs this. Our community needs a win. And I'm just really proud that we were able to do this. I have said a million times this week that I'd rather be short tenured and effective than long tenured and waffling. If I lose re-election because I've done something bold in the best interest of the city that protects the young people who need the jobs, that promotes walkability and sustainability, that promotes vibrancy, I will happily retire and wave to you all from my picture on that wall over there. But I'm not doing this under any sort of duress. I'm not doing this to disenfranchise one constituency over another. I'm not doing this for any reason except this is scary and big, but it is in the best interest. And we've risen to the challenges before. In 2002, I didn't know where Salt Lake City was, but I watched y'all on the Olympics from my home on the East Coast. We do big things here in Salt Lake City. This is the next one. So thank you all for all of your work. To our partners, thank you. To the people who are still afraid, you're welcome to keep yelling at me in whatever forum you choose to. I'm still accepting yelling. So, anyone else? All right, thank you all. We will be voting to endorse this in our 7 p.m. meeting. Chris, Councilmember Wharton.
Oh, I was just going to say I had comments too, but I'll make mine in the formal meeting.
Perfect. Thank you,
Thanks.
Councilmember. All right, let's move on. If I could invite up Allison Rowland, Council Policy Analyst. I don't see Roberta. Peter, are you replacing? Peter, if you'll come on up, and Brian Pantel from Economic Development. We will now hear the Economic Development Loan Fund to Goat Head LLC.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a proposal for a loan from the city's Economic Development Loan Fund to a business called Goat Head LLC. I will let Brian, I think, is going to do the explanation, a little more information about this particular business. I do want to point out that the Economic Development Loan Program Loan Committee recommended funding for this business.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just realized I need to be recused from this item. My firm is working on the TI.
Thank you. All right.
And the last thing I was going to say is a reminder that voting on these loans is now scheduled on the same day as the briefing, so you will have an opportunity to take action on this tonight. So I will turn it over to Peter and Brian.
Council, thank you so much for making the time to sit with us and great to see all of you again. Goat Head LLC is, kind of to segue off what Council Chair Peter was saying, is community revitalization. It's going to be hopefully located at 702 South, 300 East in District 4, the old Cocoa Kitchen location, which is across the way from Toffer Park, which we've long hoped would have a nice, wonderful spot, and this is just that place. They are requesting a loan for $100,000. The owners, Sarah and Michael Boone Whittam, are wonderful folks that are wanting to start a restaurant that is both vegan, vegetarian, and also serves a few meat flavors, including bacon. That was something they wanted to express because they've been in business. They've got 20 years experience and are excited to start their dream of owning their own business and being part of their community in District 4 in downtown.
May I, Chair? Well, I'm super excited by this, and I hope my colleagues also are supportive of this. This is where the old Coco's Kitchen was. So unfortunately, Coco's Kitchen is no longer there, but the community is so excited for Goat Head LLC to come in. I think this has been great work, and they're already doing pop-ups as it is, and they're ready to move into their permanent home. So this is just the next step they need to be retained in the community permanently. And so I'm looking forward to supporting this today.
The only, I mean, I have certainly no concerns about the application and the funding request. I would love to also support. I was hoping that Goat Head LLC was an organization destined to eliminate goat heads from the state of Utah, but unfortunately, that's not it. But I would love to support any organization that tries to kill those things. And I am waging war myself with goat heads. But one of the questions on the staff report is an interesting one to me about how does the department picks what different kinds of businesses you support, and if there is a rubric, or if there will be a rubric, or if you're thinking about a rubric. This is on the food side. There's been other ones on the food side. I wonder if there is other kinds of businesses, and if you're diversifying or thinking about diversifying the funding among other businesses. That is an interesting piece to me on this process. But beyond the process, I don't have any concerns about this specific application.
Yeah, I have questions about the name too, but that's the only thing. So maybe one day we'll all just go and visit and ask them about it. All right, anything else, Council?
Madam Chair, would you like one of these gentlemen to address Councilmember Pui's question?
Oh,
absolutely. Thank you, Councilmember Pui. We offer the program to all businesses that qualify for the program. Yes, we are heavy on the food side. We have a lot of new restaurants that are looking forward to opening in Salt Lake City, but we do market the program to everyone, and it's probably on our department where we could further market to other sectors and letting them know that the EDLF exists for their business.
Yeah, and I would love to see some of that going. Maybe I think I don't want to insert myself within your department, but that's something that I'm interested in. If there is a rubric that you guys can decide what that is, if you think that's appropriate. If not, that's okay. But I would love to see a diversification of these funds among other industries. Food is an important one, certainly, and I would love to see more of these businesses pop up and with the help of the city. But there's other creative businesses out there that might need a little bit of help and might not know, but I appreciate the help. Thank you.
Thank you again. We'll get on that rubric for you.
Oh, and really quickly, it's called Goat Head because the owners kept goats when they were kids, and for them that clicked when they wanted
Those
to name their
kind of
business.
goats. Okay.
Cabritas.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. We'll call Councilmember Mano back in. The next thing on our agenda is we're appointing 2 community members to the City and County Building Conservation and Use Committee. Mark Morris is here in person. You can come up to the table, sir, and we should have Caitlin Barhorst online. All right, so we're going to give each of you just a moment or two to tell us why you're interested in this sort of service, a little bit about yourself. We'll start with Caitlin.
Hi, this is Caitlin Barhorst speaking.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I have been living in Utah for about 5 years now. I moved out working for the city in Park City for a couple years, and then moved down to Salt Lake and just fell in love with all the historic structures, And so I've been developing my career down here and have for the last, I guess, 11 months, almost 12 months, been running my historic restoration business full time, and have just been really excited and seeing all the continued historic preservation that the city is doing for their own buildings and just throughout the neighborhoods, and working on zoning laws and things like that. So I'm just excited to be a part of the preservation um, community, and the city and county building is one of those great buildings that I am just excited to be a part of preserving. So
Thank you. And Mark? Would you make sure the green light's on?
There we go. My name is Mark Morris. I am a landscape architect here in Salt Lake City. I've had my own practice for about 15 years now, working in landscape architecture, urban design, urban planning. I think as far as our public spaces are concerned, I'm sure you know they're under constant threat, and so preservation of the places that are important to us is, we'll say, an ongoing battle, but I think that the showpiece of the city really is the city and county building and the Washington Square around it. So I'm excited to have the opportunity to be involved in that.
Thank you both. Council?
Madam Chair.
Councilmember Mono?
I would like to comment on both of these appointments to the City and County Building Conservation Use Committee. These are two of the brightest minds that I've had the pleasure of working with, both professionally and academically, throughout my career, and I'm just very honored and pleased that you're willing to spend some of your free time, which I know is very little for both of you, helping the city out in this capacity. So thank you so much, and excited to have you on board.
Anytime Councilmember Mono calls someone really bright, it makes me take notice.
By the way, I sort of stopped myself calling this building the Salt Lake City, county building too. I mean, I personally have dropped that since they're not in this building anymore. This is the Salt Lake City Hall, and so if there's anything that we can do about that, they are in a different place. They are not belong.
We pay for it. We want the credit. I'm really interested in, it's a really interesting time to serve on this, because the tensions between the historic preservation and the ability to keep people safe, given what we know about modern advances. And so my previous service was on the Historic Landmark Commission. So I'm really excited to have input and eyes and ears like yours on issues like this as we navigate some uniquely 21st century concerns. Councilmember Wharton, I saw your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I don't know Mark, but I just wanted to say I'm so excited to welcome both of you, and particularly excited to have Caitlin serving in this position. Caitlin's, I've also gotten some opportunity to get to know them as they're one of my residents, and I think that they're eminently qualified for this, and very excited that they're willing to donate their time and energy towards preserving and making the best use of City Hall. Thank you.
All right. So you all will be on the consent agenda tonight. You don't need to be present, but we'll vote you in at the formal meeting. Thank you both for being willing to share your talent with us and make the city a better place. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
thank you.
All right, Council, if you will draw your attention, you have written briefings on an ordinance regarding the prohibition of distribution centers on the former North Temple landfill site. That one particularly excites me. Please review that one. Also, a written briefing on the Salt Lake City Computers for the Community program. You have a written briefing on the resolution authorizing the mayor to execute the First Amendment to the interlocal agreement between Salt Lake City Corporation, the RDA, and the Utah Inland Port Authority. Please be sure to review all of those. With that, we'll move on to the report of the chair and vice chair. Vice Chair, do you have any reports?
Oh, sorry, I do not. Thank you, though.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and let you all know that the weeks of July 15th and July 22nd Please expect all of your check-ins with staff to be canceled. Our staff has worked triple time, and I'm going to make the decision that we are canceling all the things and there will be a brief summer recess. If you have issues with this, you too, like the general public, are welcome to yell at me, but we will not be addressing anything to our staff as we will be giving them a moment to regenerate. If possible, let's also convene on ways to maximize the rest of the summer in terms of allowing them to regenerate. That's it from me. Executive Director?
2 items, Madam Chair. First is we do have a city council meeting scheduled for August 20th, and it's come to our attention that several council members will be out of town that day performing other duties, and so we are thinking that we might need to move that meeting if we're correct in our understanding of the council members' plans. The suggestion is to move it to Tuesday, August 27th. And we need to know, we're asking you now because there are 2 items on tonight's agenda that we would need to adjust in terms of the date that the hearings are set for.
Madam Chair, I'm one of the council members that won't be available on the 20th, and I would prefer the 27th personally.
I'm also not available and prefer the 27th.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so we
Okay.
will not be meeting on the 20th. That instead will be on August 27th.
Okay. Vice Chair Wharton, are you okay the 27th?
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you. Okay. All right. And then the other issue is that the off-site council meeting for this year is planned for Tuesday, September 17th at the Sorensen Center. Does that work for everyone's schedule? If it doesn't, we'll change it.
It works for my schedule.
Yes, it works.
Okay. I'm sorry, did you say it?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. All right.
All right.
Okay. All right. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you all. All right, and with that, we've already handled our closed session. We will now be adjourned until our 7 p.m. formal meeting.